and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your NASCAR betting home, DraftKings home. It's your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me, once again, to break down all that is the
Firekeepers Casino 400.
There we go. It's that Michigan part that's throwing me off. That's just kind of makes your skin crawl. You know, it's like that maize and blue. Ugh.
Whatever, Buckeye.
Brian Twining. Qualifying's in the books. Practice is done. Getting ready to start the race. Let's break it all down. We'll talk DraftKings. We'll talk betting. We'll update our betting cards. We'll look for some values. But first, before we dive into all that, how's it going? And are you excited for the race tomorrow?
I am extremely excited. And holy crap, we cannot start without saying Bubba Wallace on his first ever pole. The Toyotas were ridiculously fast. Ty Gibbs is like, I think he's starting 11th or 12th. Like, kid
11th,
had some nice speed. He just won the Xfinity race. Keep that in mind.
Sure did.
Maybe there's something to the Toyotas using that extra piece of tape again this week. I mean, there's going to be some post-race inspections for sure, but it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, the Toyotas are fast. We were chatting a little bit about it during practice, and I was saying how I kind of was mad I missed out on the Bubba number and hoped I could get a decent one. And with him getting on the pole, I don't think it's going to happen. But we'll obviously run through that. We'll run through, not only outrights but positioning and head-to-heads and all that good stuff. But yeah, Toyotas were fast. Joe Gibbs Racing was fast. Got Bubba, Christopher Bell, and Kyle Busch as your top three. Truex is 7th. Hamlin is 9th. And as you mentioned, Gibbs starting 11th. So a lot of Toyotas in the mix. Also, a couple Fords were pretty dang fast, including 2 Penske's with Joey Logano and Austin Cindric rounding out your top 5, as well as Kyle Larson kind of showing some signs that maybe he's figuring stuff out, starting 8th, and Tyler Reddick, who just keeps winning, is starting 6th. Before we dive into all that, Brian, I'm contemplating a Tyler Reddick to win the NASCAR Cup at like 12 to 15.
It's so hard to get to a number like that.
Short, but he feels like rock solid in the playoff, and he's just performing so well that part of me is like, we obviously have our Chastain number. I got some Ryan Blaney at 12, I believe, and we'll see if he even makes the playoff at this point. So I'm just looking for an opportunity, and that Reddick number keeps jumping out to me. So just wanted to pick your brain and see, because I guess we talked a little bit about it on Wednesday, but the Hamlin number is interesting. Maybe we dive down a little bit farther, but it really feels like there's like 4 or 5 names that have a legit shot at this point to drive consistently enough week to week to actually be a factor and have it the upside of winning the race that you need to win.
Yeah, the number for Tyler Reddick at this moment, seeing what he's done this year, is actually a pretty nice number. But just knowing like where he started this season, it's really hard to get on something that short. You probably could have gotten him near that Ross Chastain 50-1 type of bet, but he's really showing that he can have speed at these ovals, not just on the road courses, which I think is really imperative going into the postseason. Now it's whether or not he can do it on Sunday, not just during qualifying, which is the issue.
Yep. And obviously, it's an interesting idea because do you bet a number that you think is a good value, even though you're not getting the best of the number? Like, it's really it's
still a good number considering he's locked to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, let's talk DraftKings, and we can kind of sprinkle in our thoughts as we kind of go through here. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Cool. Chase Elliott is your most expensive driver, starting 13th. Speaking of guy who's been rock solid, super consistent, 10-9. Kyle Larson right behind him, starting 8th at 10-7. Kyle Busch starting third, 10.5. Hamlin starting ninth at 10.3. And Ross the Boss, a guy we were excited about, flat 10K starting 22nd this week. What are your thoughts as we kind of dive into the most expensive options?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's really hard to get the Chevys. They look terrible in
Yeah.
practice and qualifying, just in terms of what we've seen them do in the past at tracks that are normally like high speed tracks. For me, in this range, honestly, Denny Hamlin starting ninth is probably the best value at 10.3. Our buddy over at iFantasy Race, he had tweeted out earlier, Hamlin had like the fastest 3-lap, 5-lap, 10-lap, and 15-lap averages during practice. So it's interesting to note that of the Toyotas, he was the fastest during that period. He just didn't necessarily put it together during his lap in qualifying. But I mean, it's clear that the JGR cars, I mean, all of the Toyotas are going to be fast tomorrow. And Hamlin has a decent amount of success here. He should have 3 victories on this season. I mean, we can't forget that fact that he probably should be the favorite going into most of these races towards the end of the season. But if it wasn't for that, that kind of takes away from that. So for me, Hamlin in this group is the best.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Kyle Busch was also really fast and was really good in practice, but starting third. And I could see honestly pairing those two guys up and kind of figuring out the rest, because you have two guys who could dominate. Obviously, we have the 2-mile long track, but there will be plenty of laps where dominators are important. And I think obviously the Toyotas have been incredible. So I think that could be an interesting strategy. And I'm curious to see kind of once lineups lock and what ownership looks like, because I feel like both those guys are going to be incredibly popular. And if you wanted to go off of them, Larson could make some sense. But as you mentioned, the Toyotas have been were so much better than the Fords and the Chevys that it's kind of hard to get there. But that's kind of when you're thinking of a GPP style lineup, that might be what you need to do. Let's dip down to the next range as we talk. Tyler Reddick starting 6th, 9,700. Right behind him, Truex, literally price wise and in the field. Ryan Blaney starting 24th. Not a good showing for him. 9,300. William Byron, a guy that I was kind of excited about for this week, starting 20th at 9,200. Might make some sense, but he's been so hot and cold that he could be somebody that performs really well and you're happy you have him, or he finishes 26th, then you're hating life. Christopher Bell looked really good again. That win, I think, really helped kind of take some of the pressure off and made him feel a lot better, and know that, even that they've had some struggles or had some issues in the pits or whatever it may be, to be able to get to victory lane, know they can do it and do it again. That's a great spot. Right behind him, Joey Logano, or I guess we'll wait for that. So of the 9K range, Reddick, Truex, Blaney, Byron, and Bell. Thoughts? Do we want to get to Blaney or Byron, or do you want to just try and find one of the other guys as a potential dominator option?
I was just going to say, I mean, Blaney just by name value is probably going to have a really high ownership percentage. And kind of like we did last week with Austin Cindric starting from that 2 spot, Christopher Bell is a great value at 9K if you just want to start there for your dominator position, because he's really coming on strong. And like you said, that victory kind of really showed him that he can finish races on Sunday and he can overcome some issues on track. So I mean, this team is kind of rounding into form. They said it all year. He's been probably the most consistent Toyota or JGR car during the races on Sunday when he's not being wrecked or having issues in the pit. So Bell starting second to me is probably the first guy I'd go to, even with starting at that such a high spot.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like his practice was fine, but like he wasn't that great. But it's always hard to figure out like what they're exactly doing in practice. Are they checking out lines? Are they just trying to get comfortable and then really pushing it at certain points just to see? But yeah, Christopher Bell is incredibly compelling, and as you mentioned, well, I think both Blaney and Byron, just where they're starting, will be interesting options. And with their potential upside is all right there. Let's dive into the 8Ks. We have Logano starting 4th, a guy that we flip over and tie. I know he's your nemesis, but was looking fast, looking strong. One of the few non-Toyotas to
Let me just
perform.
say, I'm saying it right now. I will not bet him nor want to include him in a DK lineup for the rest of the season, considering his 5 wide maneuver last week on the last
Yeah,
restart probably started the chain of events that caused Ryan Blaney to wreck out and ruin
yeah,
what would have been tremendously like profitable betting card. So Logano
yeah.
can
Yeah, he's
eat a big
definitely an ass clown. Definitely makes some very questionable decisions, but
yeah.
you know, I'm still interested in him this week. Behind him, Suarez, Kevin Harvick, who looked all right, had a decent run in practice. Alex Bowman, I don't know what's going on there. There's some, I don't know
Dude.
if it's mental or what, but he's just not the same guy. Our boy Eric Jones looks solid. So obviously starting 10th. I don't know if DraftKings is going to be a play, maybe, but it feels like you want him to be, in the teens at least before you really get to him. Um, then obviously Kurt Busch is out. Ty Gibbs is in his seat. Of these names, anybody do you want to mix in some Harvick or some Suarez or
I was just
uh
gonna say, so when you look at Harvick, he's not really the qualifying guy this
yeah,
season, but he's just that Mr. Consistently mediocre, like running 7th or 8th and finishing at that spot at most tracks. He's the among all active drivers, he has the most victories here. Like this guy is money at this track. He's been running inside the top 10 pretty much all season outside of I think the last 2 races have been pretty bad for him, but this is a track he's extremely familiar with. He's a veteran driver who will make some adjustments going into tomorrow, maybe find a little bit more speed, so Harvick at 8,400 with the potential to finish, even 5th or inside the top
yeah.
5 is great value.
Yeah, he really seems to get the most out of his car each week, even when it's not really where it needs to be. And, talking about that 10 lap average during practice, he had the 7th best. So that's good to see. I think he has a top 10 car. And like you mentioned, I think top 5 is definitely within the realm of outcomes. So
Yep.
you get a guy starting 16th. That's something that not only is he, the odds of him crushing your lineup is not really that high, and then the potential for him to finish top 5, top 3. And as we mentioned, his history at this track, despite obviously he was in the other car, is really, really good. So yeah, I think he is someone in this range that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm interested in Logano. I know you're not going to go there, but that's okay.
Nope.
If you want to find a dominator option that maybe starts a little lower, that or save a little value there, I think he makes some sense. We'll dip into the 7Ks and talk about the next range. We have Cindric, as you mentioned, starting 5th, 7,700. Right behind him, Briscoe, 23rd. Bubba on the pole at 7,400. I don't hate going there. I know it's a little weird or unexpected, I guess. And usually when you fire up Bubba, you want him to be like 18th, and then he finishes top 5, top 10. But really good on super speedway type races. Obviously, this isn't a super speedway, but it's one of the fastest 2 miles in NASCAR. Obviously, had a nice performance last week. Thanks to a little bit of obviously the craziness at the end, but he was fast in practice. He qualified on the pole. Sometimes we can get cute and overthink it, and then Tyler Reddick, who showed us all weekend that he was the fastest car last weekend, wins the race. So I will definitely have some Bubba and in lineups where I want to save my Dominator money and load up at other spots. So he makes a ton of sense to me. Austin Dillon, Chris Buescher round out the 7K range. Beyond Bubba, who are you interested in any of the other names?
Well, let me just say, first off, I believe Austin Cindric has a better potential at this track than Joey Logano does, considering their $1,100 difference in
Yep.
salary. I would much rather go to Cindric. He looked great in qualifying too. And it's weird, like the young guys are kind of figuring out the new car a lot better than the old.
It's
crony.
almost like younger people are better with like change, where old people want to keep everything the same.
I feel like that's a direct shot at me. And then, yeah, like you said with Bubba, like I think we mentioned it earlier in the week. Like his odds were a little bit short for somebody who hadn't really had great success here, and it was kind of interesting to see that. And we saw it earlier in the year with Daniel Suarez. Like clearly, the sports books were onto something. He was easily the fastest car during practice and qualifying. And we mentioned it, like he's really coming into his own. He's figuring out this car. This team has got their shit together, for lack of better words. And, starting first, even if he leads like 30 laps and he winds up finishing 6th or 7th or just inside the top 10, like you're still sitting pretty with what you got out of that for just $7,400.
Yeah. And 2311, like we're going to be talking about them as a legit force in NASCAR in the coming years, with the team they're putting together. Obviously, Reddick coming over, the Bubba. Ty Gibbs probably races for JGR, but yeah, I mean they're putting together the right pieces. They've shown.
Let me just throw this out there. Okay, so Kyle Busch is not signed to a contract next year. His brother Kurt is dealing with concussion, and there's a possibility he retires. I mean, why are we not talking about more Kyle Busch just moving straight over into another Toyota, taking over the number 1 car for 2311?
Yeah, and then with Ty Gibbs showing what he can be already,
or the number 45.
There may be a reason why the Gibbs team is ready to make that move. I know it's weird, kicking out a veteran who is one of the best to ever do it.
And Ty Gibbs is clearly ready though.
Yeah, but he's ready to make this in that. And I don't think JGR wants to mess around with that. I think they want to make sure they have a seat, even if that means supplanting Kyle Busch. And but yeah, that could be an option. There's also been some kind of whispers that maybe he does what Kyle Larson does and just takes a year off and goes races wherever he wants and has some fun with it. And
I can see him being that kind of personality that.
I mean, he's definitely somebody that wants to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it.
Yeah.
And he's got a family. I don't know. We'll see. But it is interesting that especially when they're getting deals done with other drivers, maybe there's an agreement. Hey, we're ready to part ways. This has been a great run, but anyways, we'll move along. Speaking of Gibbs, we'll dive into that 6K range. Keselowski starting 33rd, Almirola at 18th, Ricky Spinouts 28th, Ty Gibbs at 11th. I know it's kind of scary, but at 6,600, I could find myself getting there because I do believe in him. He may not win, but I think 7th, 8th is within the range of outcomes, and at 6,600 that might be okay. It just depends on what else my lineup looks like. If I want someone I feel a little more comfortable with,
however, let me just point out, like, not to put dirt on this fire here, Ty Gibbs is at the beginning of the race is going to be running with a whole different level of driver as he has been running near the back of the pack. And like, these guys are not going to give space the same way that the back markers do. And if Gibbs is competing for, a top 10 or something like that, he may get sent into the wall and introduced to real Cup Series racing.
Yeah.
So I do worry about that aspect a little bit.
Yeah, no, I feel that, but I think the talent's there. I think he's in a very, very good car. And,
for sure.
Definitely feel good about him. Austin Hill starting 31st, obviously making the double header this weekend. Michael McDowell, Cole Custer, Harrison Burton. The 6K range is kind of gross, but there is some potential there. And even in the 5K range, Ty Dillon started 25th. Noah Gragson, who performed well and actually seems to be growing up a little bit on the track. Completely ready for him to completely derail someone's day just for no reason. But he is looking pretty good. Gilliland, see if he can back up what he did last week. Anybody in this 5 to 6K range that you're like pounding the table for, got to get them in some lineups, or is it really just figure out where they can fit in and kind of make it work when you need to make it work?
I mean, we briefly spoke about him last week, but Michael McDowell seems to just be kind of flying under the radar, being like that mid-teen, low-teen finisher of late. And I mean, he practiced good, he qualified good. He's the kind of guy that could potentially stay right there if he finishes inside the top 15, has a couple fastest laps or something. It's 6,500. You're probably getting 25 to 30 points, which is pretty good at at that like salary spot.
Yeah, he's definitely made strides. He was a I'm gonna run in the 20s kind of guy, but he's had some performances this year that have made you kind of stand up and take notice, including the M&M's Fan Appreciation 400, the Save Mart 350. I mean, look at this pretty decent performance for McDowell for
Yeah, that's what I
good
mean.
year
Like
for,
he's doing a lot better than what you
yeah.
would normally kind of
And even like
anticipate him
he's
doing.
had some decent performances where he's starting in the teens and he's not he's doing pretty well. So yeah, no, I think that's a good call on your part as well. Okay, Brian, we are ready to do what we do, and we're going to build a lineup. So I will give you the tee, and I will let you drive this ship. Where are we going? Who is the first man in? It can be the cheap guy, it can be the expensive guy, it can be a dominator. Who do you want to make sure they get in a seat in our ride?
We're gonna start with number 11, Denny Hamlin,
Okay.
starting ninth, 10-3. I really don't see, unless he gets wrecked, him finishing outside the top 5 this week. So
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Let's see, what do we want to do here? Interesting names. I'm going to put in Harvick starting 16th at 8,400. I think he makes sense. I trust him, and I think it'll allow us to get a little more aggressive with some of our other spots.
oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, just to get a little risky here. We're gonna add Christopher Bell. It's gonna be a
Okay.
little bit higher in salary, but I feel like he could be that early potential dominator starting, in the second spot there, and then if he
Yep.
can just ride with Denny all day, I mean,
Yep.
you're
And then
sitting pretty there.
have Harvick reach there by stage 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Um, let's see here. What do we want to do? I think we need to get some values, obviously, with spending the money we've spent. But I'm not going to force anything. Anyone jumping out to you as someone we want to make? Because like these guys kind of make sense, but they feel really rich. So if we want to save a spot for there, we can go up to them. But let's see here. Ty Dillon, Justin Haley, Gilliland starting 37th. I don't really like McDowell is fine too, but I don't really want to squeeze him in.
Well, I mean, just for like reference, real quick, Harrison Burton had the 9th like best 10 lap average during practice, and I mean, starting 27th at 6K, you're basically just hoping at a 20th at that point for that salary.
Yeah,
And I mean, that's definitely doable for
let's do
him.
it. So that puts us at 8150. So we can be another little value. Man, Stenhouse is interesting. Let's look at other practice numbers. Did anyone else jump out? You know who was actually really fast was Austin Hill. He only did it through 9 laps, but he had the 10th fastest 10 lap average. So that's kind of interesting. Bowman was actually really fast, which is weird. From 9 to 18, he was the 8th best ride. But I just, man, that he is so hard to get to.
I mean,
Marola.
we talk about this guy all pretty much every week, but Chris Buescher starting 19th. I mean, a lot of times qualifying numbers are a little bit deceiving because it's literally a single lap and one mistake can cost you,
Yeah.
multiple tenths of seconds. He was decent during practice during the 5-lap average. He was 13th. He didn't run as many laps as most guys, but he has a pretty good string of success. Coming into the race, he's always somebody that's running inside like the top 15 or so. So, I mean, 7,100, he makes sense. And then Ricky Spinhouse Jr., I have a shot in the dark top 10 on him, but he did not look quick. Like, he didn't look comfortable in the car.
See what happens when we do that.
Ooh.
And then we go Blaney, 9,300.
I mean, yeah, then we got our back marker to move up. Let's do it.
It's interesting. And we have Burton starting in the back. We have Blaney starting in the back. There's a few guys kind of in that mid pack. I think I'd rather have one more guy starting farther back, but I think it's interesting, and I'm not going to force. Yeah, I mean, man,
what if what if we
Keselowski,
went?
do we do it?
Definitely not Brad Keselowski. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But no, I would feel comfortable going with Almirola.
Yeah, I think Almirola is the other name that makes sense.
As long as he doesn't wreck, I think he can finish, better than 18th, which is all you're basically hoping for just his spot in this lineup is just a decent performance.
He had the 4th best 10 lap average and was 7th best in practice. So yeah, let's do that. There's our lineup. Not leaving quite as much on the table, but that's okay. This is super solid.
Not a single Chevy.
Yeah, but we got those Toyotas in there, so at least a couple of them.
It's kind of scary, to be quite honest with you.
Oh, 1,000%. So we'll save that. We'll call that, and obviously we'll be back later in the middle of the week to recap all that was and see how we're doing. Let's flip over. Let's look at the betting board and see where we're at. Kyle Busch is now your favorite. Incredibly fast in practice, qualified 3rd. Inside 5-1 across the board. Right behind him, Denny Hamlin, 6.5. Chase Elliott, 7.5 or 8. And Kyle Larson rounds out the inside 10-1. We both have some Larson exposure. I have 7.5. You have 7. He's now 9. Kind of interesting if you liked Larson before.
I don't think it's enough movement for me to add.
Yeah, no, I think we'll sit pretty with what we have, but if you've yet to bet, fine going back to it. He looked good enough in practice and in qualifying.
Yeah. He was like the only Chevy that showed like a good single lap speed.
Yeah. So I think he makes some sense. The next range, I think, is where we have some fun. We have Truex are at 10, 9 or 10. Bubba, obviously qualifying really well, is now 10-1. Tyler Reddick had a nice day on both practice and qualifying, 10-1, 11-1. Christopher Bell right behind him. Logano, I'm happy to have. I know he's your nemesis, but I got him at 20. His number is now 14, 15, which I'm actually kind of surprised it's still that high. But he is in that kind of second tier this year and probably priced accordingly.
Oh yeah. Honestly, of all the guys, like our boy Christopher Bell, it's still 12-1.
Yep.
That's almost double what Denny is.
Yeah. And he was fast and he looks good and he's riding a Toyota. He's another guy that I could see getting a second win and really locking in his playoff seed. So,
you know what? I'm actually going to add that. I'm going to add Christopher Bell.
And another win would be good for his cup odds. So he might be somebody that, if you feel good about him winning this week or at least having a chance, getting in on a season cup number, I think is a good time to buy. Blaney's number being this short relative to where he's starting is pretty interesting. I think that says a lot about where he is as a driver and what he could do. On Sunday, Kevin Harvick, I really like his number. It's probably a better top 5 bet, top 3 bet, but it is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I added a half a unit on him at 25-1 earlier in the week. So obviously it's still the same. So I'm pleasantly surprised there. He's just on the cusp of qualifying inside the top 10. So it's not like he doesn't have speed, and he's going to run the entire day because he rarely wrecks out.
Yep. Interesting odds. Ty Gibbs priced aggressively again, but probably for the right reasons. Eric Jones is still sitting there.
I could see getting the Cindric still.
That's interesting.
That's a big number. 40-1
for how well he performed, how good he looked. That's interesting. Let's look at the top 10s, top 5s, because I think that might be a better spot to attack him. But yeah, no, it just seems wild, based on how good he's been.
One thing to note, I don't think FanDuel still or has updated their top 10s yet.
Yeah, Action just kept. I think they pull in the data, and then whenever there's new data, they replace it. Yeah, I mean, can I get this points bet number for Bubba? Let's do a little, because
that's got to be old, man. Because I'm pretty sure that's what the number opened at, and I remember saying like it was too short at the time, which clearly was a mistake.
Yeah. Let's see here. Here's the outrights. Just points.
It is extremely interesting, however, like when you go down the list, like you have Christopher Bell still sitting there minus 400 to top 10 now, when we talked about it all season. Like, he is the perfect bet him early driver, because he's always qualifying better than what I guess they anticipate, and his numbers are always plummeting as we get post qualifying. And so he every single week, and the books have still yet to adjust.
Yeah, Bubba's plus 130 to top 5. They don't have top 10 numbers up, so my guess is you can't get that number anymore. So I will just cheer on Bubba and not take a piece of that. Eric Jones minus 110 or plus 100, I guess. So we should really just look at BetMGM and DraftKings and call it a day, because
I think Caesars has updated odds, but they don't have any top 10s. So
makes sense. I still love that they have Kurt Busch numbers up here, even though he's not racing. Plus 130 on Austin Cindric to top 10.
So I got him at plus 190 yesterday at FanDuel.
Yeah, and that's a phenomenal number. But plus 130?
That's still a good number for him.
I will add that. Top 10 plus 130. Michael McDowell plus at 3-1 to top 10. Yeah,
you can get plus 750 at BetMGM.
Is that real though?
Oh yeah, I'll do some reconnaissance.
Appreciate that. I'm gonna flip over and look at the top 3 market. Sheesh. Imagine betting Kyle Busch to top 3 at like plus 110, plus 120.
Oof.
That just seems aggressive.
Yeah.
Chris Bell at 3-1.
Okay, what were we contemplating? Michael McDowell, right?
McDowell and let me go.
Currently posted plus 750 for McDowell to top 10.
That's pretty damn good.
I'm gonna add that. That's too good of a number.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. $750. It really feels like the books have been handing out these pretty sizable numbers on drivers that don't expect top 10 and top 5, and it's probably warranted, but like what we saw last week, like they handed out some numbers last week. We got Bubba at 15. They had some, Justin Haley had a nice day.
There a lot of the books, I mean, because the sports books are still kind of slow to kind of acclimate to the sport itself in the betting realm, and they're basing a lot of their stuff and their odds making probably on past results and stuff like that. And so, a guy like Bubba, he had never done well at road courses, so there was no reason to think that he was going to top 10.
Yep. Nope. That's completely fair.
All right, you got to think. I'm gonna add this. This is extremely aggressive on the top 5. Kevin Harvick plus 325 over at BetMGM. The top 5.
Wow.
I think he could. I think he has the potential to get there. He's not somebody I know. I bet him on the outright, but I would never try to say he's gonna win. Like
plus
pick him to be my winner,
325.
Yeah, 325.
Yeah, I bet it. Oh, I bet it earlier in the week, and I got it 3-1. So plus 325 later is nice. Let's look at some head-to-heads because I think there's fun to be had in there. Let's see. Driver props, duh. Blaney versus Byron. This is our show bet, right? Yep. I have Byron. You have Blaney. Looking really good for you now that it's minus 130. Gibbs over Jones.
Oh, I'm taking Jones at the even money here. I mean, the kid is great, but Jones has been fast at these kinds of tracks. So
yeah. What's the top 10 numbers on those guys? Because Jones
is about even.
Where's Gibbs? I don't think he's listed on Action Network. Well, let's go over here. Top 10. Gibbs is even. Jones is even. And yet, you go over to the head-to-head, it's minus $1.20. So should we just bet both of them to top 10 and not think about it? Or do we just want this? That way, if Jones gets 11th, like he did to us before, as long as Gibbs is 12th or later, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the matchup. There we go, baby. Ricky Spinhouse over Brad K. That is definitely going on the card. Yeah. F you, Keselowski.
You could do Harvick versus Logano, too.
I went there last week. I don't know if I'm going to go back to back with that.
Reddick at plus 140 over Denny. That's kind of interesting.
That's aggressive.
I know the Toyota's been fast, but Logano versus Chastain.
All right, I'm doing it again too. I'm Larson over Elliott. I like beating my head against the wall, but again,
plus 115 over against Reddick.
It's got to be based on recent results. I mean, Tyler Reddick has won 2 races in the last, I think, 4 or 5. So,
yeah.
Oh, Guinea, man, I'm the matchup person this week. Give me Hamlin over Kyle.
Yep. Bubba against Christopher Bell. I'm definitely not feeling the board as much this week as we did last week. Last week, there was some stuff that just kind of made sense.
Yeah.
This week, I feel like it's a lot more calm and not really anything that's like screaming value, except for like obviously the couple head-to-heads that you're on.
I found one more on the board that's even money.
Kevin Harvick over Daniel Suarez.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to take that too. I'll add that.
I know Trackhouse has been extremely fast, but Suarez has some pretty poor results in the past here. And like I said, I just think Harvick knows this track too well to not finish extremely well here.
Yep. And I just feel better about him. Like getting even money, just get me like a 7th and call it a day.
Yeah, exactly. And I also hit on this too. Like Kevin Harvick avoids contact. He's one of the best on the roster at doing that. Whereas Daniel Suarez gets a little frisky at times. I mean, we saw it last week with him being one of the drivers that bumped into Blaney on that last restart. Whereas Harvick will do everything to avoid that kind of stuff. So give me Harvick at even money on that.
I think I might join you on the Hamlin over Busch. I don't know. I'm gonna sit that one out. I'll let you be the head-to-head king this week.
I got a lot of them.
Let's see if we have any good numbers for top Chevy, top Ford, top Toyota. Eric Jones at 12-1 to top Chevy is kind of interesting. You really need him to get like 5th or 6th though, huh? Harvick at 450 to top Ford.
Man, I'd be going like
Cindric 750 to top Ford.
What about Mickey D?
No.
20-1?
No chance.
No
chance.
Christopher Bell 6-1, top Toyota. That number is ridiculous. That's definitely getting added to the card.
Yep.
Like I understand Hamlin and Busch are, they're a lot more experienced and all that kind of stuff, but Bell is not he's
Love it.
He's closer to them than I think people think in terms of his skill level right now.
Yep. And Scooter has never gotten back to me about winning the Christopher Bell signed mini helmet. So if you're still watching and you're still going through this with us, put whatever comment, you can let us know who your favorite outright is or your favorite prop or whatever. And then just put hashtag Bell at the end. And I will do one more giveaway. If I do another giveaway and the person doesn't claim it, I'm going to send it to Brian. So this is round number 2. If you're still watching, hashtag Bell at the end of your comment, or you can just put hashtag Bell as your comment. I don't really care. Make sure you do that, and you'll enter to win. I will announce the giveaway on our next show where we recap Michigan. And let you know how we did, how our bets did, how our DraftKings did, and then we will, you can try and give it away. So if you are not already and you're enjoying what we're doing, hit subscribe, hit the like button, do all the things, tell your friends to come check our show out as we spread the good word of the Angle of Pursuit. But Brian, let's recap our betting card. Let's look at what we have already, and then let's give the people a best bet before we get out of here. So currently on the card, I have 3 outrights. I have Kyle Larson at 7.5. I have William Byron at 12 and Joey Logano at 20. I have Logano top 10 at -135. Wish I put a little more on that, but that's okay. Kevin Harvick top 10 at -110. I got 3 units. That was my best bet. Stenhouse Jr., we rode that wave for a top 10 at +350. Not looking great. I have Eric Jones top 5 at 350. I have Kevin Harvick top 5 at 3-1. I have Reddick over Hamlin. I have our show bet of Byron over Blaney. I have the Austin Cindric top 10 at +130. I have the Michael McDowell top 10 at 7.5-1. The Harvick over Suarez at +100, and added that Christopher Bell top Toyota 6-1 for just a little sprinkle. Break down your card for the fine folks out there and let me know what your best bet is.
All right, so on the outright market earlier in the week, I jumped on the Tyler Reddick train as he's been the hottest driver in NASCAR. Ryan Blaney, number got a little bit longer, but that's okay. I still like him. Kevin Harvick, just in case. I mean, he's gone like 65 races without winning. And then I added a Kyle Larson and a Christopher Bell outright coming into the race. Top 10s, Kevin Harvick, best bet from earlier in the week, just like Kyle. The old man should perform well here. Christopher Buescher, +370 to top 10. That number is just ridiculous considering he's always a threat to do that. Ricky Spinhouse, top 10, +350. I don't know how that's going to go this week. I added a Austin Cindric top 10 at +190 last night before it started shrinking. And then that Michael McDowell, 7.5-1 is too long. So I added that for a half a unit. Top 5 market, I'm going really short. Just give me Kevin Harvick at +325. That's a good number for somebody I think has the potential to do that. And then on the outrights, we're getting crazy this week. Eric Jones over Ty Gibbs. Stenhouse Jr. over my arch nemesis, Brad K. Kyle Larson over Chase Elliott for plus money. That's ridiculous. Denny Hamlin over Kyle Busch plus money. What are they doing? And then Kevin Harvick over Daniel Suarez. Harvick is Mr. Consistency here, and in all likelihood, he will absolutely crash out in the first wreck of the race. And then Christopher Bell, top Toyota at a ridiculous number of 6-1 is the last bet on my card.
Yep. No, I like a lot of what you're putting out there. I like that you're staying on brand with some of your other ones, and makes a lot of sense. That being said, what is your best bet for the Firekeepers Casino 400 at Michigan?
All right. So I hit on this, and I really do think this is something that should be worried about in that 45 camp. Ty Gibbs is going to be running with drivers he hasn't run with yet in the Cup Series. So give me Eric Jones over Ty Gibbs as my best bet for the race on Sunday. I just think Jones has a little bit more experience than Gibbs. He may not be as good of a driver, but just kind of knowing his way around a Cup Series race is going to be crucial coming into this race.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And I'm making that 3-unit play, by the way.
Eric Jones is still a little terrifying, but I do trust him a little bit more this week. My best bet's going to be Austin Cindric to top 10.
Woo!
It's still plus 130. It doesn't make any sense. I expect him to run well all day on Sunday. I expect him to be somewhere in that like 4 to 8 or 9 range and lock up that top 10 and finish really, really strong and have a solid day. The fact that it's still that number is crazy to me. So that is my best bet to go with my Kevin Harvick top 10. I just want to see both those guys in the top 10. I don't really care where. If you are enjoying the show, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, do all the things. Drop a comment, add hashtag Bell to the end to be entered to win the signed Christopher Bell mini helmet. Otherwise, it's going to Brian Twining. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. You guys enjoy the race, and we'll talk to you next time.